Hello and welcome to EvilGinger Miniatures, where I'm recording this in the dead of night because there's been a lot of noises off all day in the daytime, even on the Sunday evening when I was trying to record it the first time round. But it's now about 1 AM in the morning on the Tuesday that this is due to go out, and so hopefully I'll get some peace and quiet. And I won't get bangings and thumpings on the recording like I was previously. But this is the fourth time I've done this intro. What's on today? Well, today is another one of those bitty ones that I've been doing a lot of lately. I've been doing a lot of building of these, which are the Civilians 2 from Traitors Toll. They're elves and dwarves. And in the best Blue Peter, here's some I've done earlier. The ones at the front are finished. I just need to varnish them. There should be 12 elves, 12 dwarves. Some of the dwarves I've kit bashed because I was basically trying to work out what arms fitted, and this is one of them where I've actually put the arms off a Human Wizard 2 because I find the female wizard's arms are a little bit more proportional to the dwarves than the male ones. And you've got dwarf waving to her friend. You've got dwarf poet. Again, these are wizard arms used for the kit bash. You've got a couple of miners. And a street cleaner having a pint of beer. No, that's not. That's a bar fly. This is a street cleaner having a thingy of beer. So they're very nice figures. I really enjoy doing them. Fortunately, they don't have enough arms, which is somewhat of an issue. It's an issue with a lot of plastic kits, actually, where they don't have enough left arms or arms with closed hands. If you've got someone running with a rifle in the right hand, you've got not enough left hands that aren't doing anything. And the mix of arms between the elves and the dwarves is different. And personally, if I'd have done them, I'd have done maybe twice as many spare arms. I know people don't like spares, but the whole point of these sorts of models is that you're going to generate spares, and they're always useful later for kit bashes and things. I'm not fiddling about with cameras today, so I'm just doing it the traditional way of just waving it in front of the camera. I've also been doing the cavalry such as I can do for John Martin's of Pembroke Royalist Barons Warforce for Victrix, and I have so far the commander of his mercenary company, who is a captain, but I've done him out of a knight figures because he's heavily armoured and he's on a caparison horse. And I've done 5 lancers. I do need to get the Victrix, or actually Victrix need to get their act together and get it out because I don't think it's available yet. The Victrix mounted sergeants, because there are some mounted sergeants that I need for this force, which I can't do at the moment. There is another issue. According to Baron's War rules, cavalry can either go on a 50 by 25 pill, or it can go on a 40mm round. the horse, that's a 40mm round. The horse sort of fits on that, but some of the other horses don't so much. One of them that really annoyed me because I was going, no, this is it. And some I can fit on, but this one I can't, and I can't even trim off the bits that are sticking over the edge. So I'm going to have to get some 60 by 30s for the cavalry, which I don't have. I used to use them for light cavalry, but I used them up long since. Or I could put them on 50mm rounds, but again, that's an awful lot of base for, empty base on that. But as I say, they're coming along and they're being cracked. I've got a load over here, which are in various processes of seeing. If you've been watching the Facebook page, you'll see that there are loads of them. This is the latest batch who are of infantry, and they're nearly done. I've got to go back and do the metallics on them and retouch bits and pieces because they need shading, washing after I've shaded and washed things. But they were done last night and have only just dried, so I should probably be doing them after I've done this recording. It'll look a bit quiet today because on the Facebook page, because I've been at it like a maniac and I need to do some domestic stuff and I need to do bits and pieces not particularly photogenic, like the minefield that I'm finally getting around to constructing in the workshop. It'll be photogenic when it's done, but bits of wire stuck into bases with bits of wire wrapped around them aren't terribly photogenic, and at the moment I'm having to generate an awful lot of pictures to keep the Facebook algorithm happy. I've already upset it because I'm not buying adverts because they won't tell me why they've demonetized me. I think I know why, but I'm not sure how to fix it in a practical manner. And it's not an awful lot of money, to be honest, but it's encouragement, and the old mental health works better if you're given gentle encouragement. And it looked like it was building up. I also need to work out what on earth's going on with the Patreon for this, because as I say, I have got a couple of Patreon subscribers now, but I don't appear to be receiving any money from Patreon, which is probably my fault, because I've probably not set up the bank account properly. So I'm going to have to faff around with that and see if that's going to work for me. As I say, the Patreon is basically to make sure I get enough money to keep improving this. As I say, I had a plan to improve the cameras, but I ran out of money. I had to upgrade the computer, so I didn't run out of memory on it. And all the money that was meant to go on extra camera arms and things ended up going on a 12 terabyte hard drive, which will last me for ages, but especially if I zip stuff down for archiving, which I now remember how to do, so that there'll be more room for stuff like that. But the big thing at the moment is finishing the workshop clearance up, and getting all the stuff that shouldn't be in there off to the charity shops that it belongs in, and that sort of thing, so I can actually have some space to operate down there. We've also got lots more boxes to put stuff in, and at the moment I have a large box of sprues sitting in my bath because it's the only place I can put it without it being actively in the way when I'm doing anything other than bathing. You must bath at least once a month. It has to be done. But basically, yeah, the ability of plastic figures to generate vast quantities of sprue is getting to me a little bit, and I'm having to get them under control. There was a huge number down here beside me, but I've got that under control mostly by clearing an 84-litre box out, of which I need a couple more, and a 50, because then I can get another 84 that's full of scenery that is mostly full of empty air, because the scenery doesn't fill it up completely, and a few other bits and pieces like that. So I just need to get more organised, and it's all money and time, as ever. But isn't everything. But as I say, I've volunteered a couple of people to do things. I'm getting a doorbell in so I can actually hear the door go, and there will be a repeater up here. So if I'm up here and the fans are all going, and I've got something to keep my brain going on the laptop, I can actually hear when people get to the door, rather than just arriving downstairs to discover the leaflet. I didn't hear the door flap go. And the other thing about the doorbell is, because I get lots of people knocking on my door at strange hours, I'm going to be turning off the doorbell outside office hours, so it's only going to be turned on when I'm expecting deliveries or during sort of working times. So it's going to be there. It's going to be thingy 9 to 5, or unless I'm expecting a later delivery, but that all requires a switch being wired into the system, and also requires a hole being drilled in the wall, because the landlord needs to replace my front door because it doesn't lock properly. It does lock, but it doesn't lock properly, and it doesn't lock from the outside. So, and as the door is ancient and very badly warped in the heat over the period of time it's been exposed directly to the sun, no point. I can't put a doorbell on through the door, because that will just go with the door when it goes. So I'm having to have a hole drilled in the wall next to it. So I've actually got a doorbell wired into the wall adjacent to the door, so that it'll work, and it will stay there after the door's replaced, because it will be, because I'm bugging the landlord continually about it, and I may have to get to the I'm not paying rent stage. I don't want to do that particularly, because he's been a reasonable landlord most of the time, but he's not exactly dynamic in doing stuff that isn't actually critical. But yeah, it's the joy of renting a house, and of never actually getting around to buying one when I had the money to do that sort of thing, because I was nomadic and it was easier just to rent. And now I'm not nomadic and I'm still renting. And yeah, it's all part of the inconvenience of stuff. What else have we got on? Lots more stuff to build. I've got half done orcs, half done dwarves, half done La Marshal's retinue. I've got more stuff downstairs in the workshop that I varnished a couple of days ago. That got a good coat gloss varnish, and I've got some matte varnish now, and I will be brush matte varnishing it at some point this week. I'm also planning on faffing around and seeing about solo dungeons and stuff, because my heroes requires me to run solo dungeons. I'm probably going to be using the Hackmaster rules for it with my modifications. And I've got some stuff that I've got to take off this PC and put back on the laptop, which I need to upload to the Patreon, because all the Patreon stuff is on the laptop. In fact, all my working stuff is on the laptop, which is why it's not terribly useful for me to use it. This gets turned on for doing things like this recording. I also very definitely need to get this thing monetized. And the other thing about varnishing is that the Norman Norman warband, which is the first payment to my editing chap, is all done apart from the decals for the standards and varnishing and basing. And I'm planning on doing that this week and having his little, this isn't it, but there's a colour called verdigris, which looks like corrosion on copper or bronze. And I got him one of these because he liked it. But I got two of them. It's not that one. Is that it? That's it's more the colour, but that's jade green, which is the sort of colour you use as highlight for as a dark tone for it. Though I tend to put a little bit of one of the Army Painter Forest Sprite thin down over it, and then dry brush over the top of it just to give it sort of a bit of three-dimensional pick out detail and stuff like that. But it's the colour I've got on. I did the railing spears for the Gothic walls, and very excitingly, while I was digging around under the table, literally digging around under the table, upstairs in the workshop, I actually found the missing Gothic wall, and I've just got to finish it. But I will finish that along with the first batch of the minefields, which should be going off relatively soon. Then I'll proceed to the second batch, because there's 20 of the little buggers to do, and I haven't got space for 20, so I've got space for 10. That's the last of my coffee, which is a terrible crime. Considering the size of that cup, I really ought to take longer drinking it, but I don't, because I'm a coffee addict and almost out of coffee, so that's going to have to do something I address tomorrow. Hopefully I get out and do some actual gaming tomorrow, or at least associate with the gaming group, because the last time I went down there and they were all there, I didn't get past the corner shop here, and the time I actually got down there, none of the buggers did either. So I ended up having a burger and walking home, which wasn't exactly what I was after, but I at least had a chat and wander around, and I got some stuff from boys, including the varnish that I needed for the finishing the Normans off. And but it was still sort of an hour rather than 2 or 3 hours of talking to, well, you could call them human, but the Nightmare Gaming Group are what they are and what they've always been. Total nightmares. Of course, I'm the nightmare as well when I'm gaming. But tomorrow is not the game I was rather hoping it would be. It's young Ms. Webster's superhero game, which I like superhero games, but I like Champions, and I've not played the one that she's intending to play, and I was really after a fairly serious hardcore D&D style game, which is why I've got all the characters sorted out for Hackmaster and things, and a backup character. So I might just sit in the back tomorrow and just roll a character, but it'll be worthwhile being around people again, and reminding me why once a week is more than enough for being around people. But yeah, I have lots of stuff going on, and it's all moving forwards. It's just expensive and slow and time consuming, but that seems to be the thing around here. And I shouldn't grumble too much, providing the mental health is functional. Or I have an intermittent mouse. A mouse comes into my office mostly, has a look round, finds out there's no food to be had here because I'm paranoid about leaving it out, and then wanders off wherever it lives properly. But as I say, this is an old house, and I'm fairly sure that there are mice that live in the roof, there are mice that live in the floor space, and the fact that there are two very loud, the fat lazy cats next door don't appear to make any difference. Every time I see a mouse, it's not like the other winter when I got lots of mice because they were all disturbed from the loft upstairs next door. and I had to put the traps down. I've put traps down when I thought there was more than one of them round my way, and they might be living here, but I've not caught anything for months. And I've got quite a lot of traps, and so they've either got very, very wise to the traps, or they're not here all the time, and they come, they have a look round, they don't find anything they're interested in, and then they bugger off again. And they've probably been doing that for longer than I've been living here, so I'm happy that that will continue, because they're not a problem. And now I've mouse-proofed all the food supplies, they're even less of a problem. And they were always more of a problem when they were coming in from the garden, when the back door was open in the summer, and then they were getting into the food cupboards and eating stuff, but plastic boxes defeat them reasonably handily. Talking of plastic boxes, I might be upgrading from my paints from these, which I've been using for years, to something a bit more substantial, because I keep knocking these on the floor, and the amount of hours I've spent dragging my paint collection, and this isn't all of it, there are 4 of these down there. There are a few on the floor from where I've dropped them or knocked them off, because that's another thing about working up here, is that you knock things off the table all the time, because there's what, about 18 inches between the table and the shelves at the back, and it's, you know, quite a tight fit. So basically they're either going to all go downstairs and be on a probably a set of wire racking, so I can actually put them in shelves when I've cleared the bench, the workshop bench down there, or if they're up here, they're going to be in something like 4-litre boxes, so that they're a bit more substantial, and they also clip onto the 9-litre boxes, which I have been stacking them on under here, which is where all my packing is, so I don't tend to knock them off onto the floor quite so much. And yeah, there's quite a lot down here. Yeah. I thought I'd got more off the floor. I haven't. There are loads. Yeah. That's another one I just dropped. But basically I'm going to have a good dig around in that part. Now I've partly cleared the I also have a tragedy to report. Where's it gone? Might have said I lost a beastman the other week. That's all I could find of him. So it looks like I'm going to have to make another couple of those next time I get a box. But this is again a problem with this desk, in that moving around in here, you knock stuff off and stuff goes on the floor. And at least downstairs I've actually got more gangway, and when I replace the shelving that's down there with the foot wide version of this, I'm going to have a lot more. I'm going to have another foot of gangway easily, because I've got plastic shelving which is wider than that, and as I say, it needs replacing. But again, that's another organisational thing. Also, the amount of stuff you can fit on these shelves, especially when they're properly well organised, is considerably more than you can fit on the black plastic shelving that I have been using. I mean, if I'd have known about these from the start, I'd have actually bought a lot more of them. But it's probably my oldest reek of paint. It's from a range they don't do anymore. I mean, they do the colour, but it's a colour I don't use much of, which is a deep purpley colour. Anyway, you have had quite a bit of me, and I've every intention of doing some bonus content later in the week on where we are with stuff, probably with the Normans, and I can show you some stuff and I can record things down in the workshop on this thing. So there'll be more later in the week. Probably Thursday, Friday-ish, as I have got a very voracious algorithm to feed on Facebook at the moment, and the very voracious algorithm takes a lot of time and lots and lots and lots of pictures to feed it. I've managed to get quite a lot done, but as I'm going to have a relatively quiet day, or will have had by the time this goes out, a relatively quiet day when it comes to posting, I'm going to be at it like a mad thing on Wednesday. So if it looks like I'm winning by Thursday, I'll do one Thursday evening, Friday. So there will be bonus content this week at some point. Anyway, I think that is more than enough of me for now. And I've got some figures to wash, to put wash on, before I crawl to bed. And so that's enough of me for now. Hopefully see you in the next one. Take care, everybody, and goodbye.